We sung the Matovu today, and as you could tell from this Torah portion, if you read it, not everybody that says the Matovu may have your best interest in mind, but it was God who gave him the utterance. So he said, whatever Yah says, that will I speak. I'm already losing my mind. I need my glasses, please. I looked down at this page and I seen that it was nothing but a blur. When I was thinking on all this, listening to many people, heard some very interesting things this week. But most of the people, they concentrated on the beginning of it. I'm going to kind of summarize a little bit of that, and then I'll get into a little bit more of what's talked about in the beginning. I felt the need, though, that as I was going through this week, that as we get up here and we talk about these things, with the nature of what's being said here, that I wanted to start off. I think this comes from Zechariah, but to Hasatan, I would like to say that Yah, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, rebuke you. Even Yah, who has chosen Yerushalayim, rebuke you. I like to call myself the Fallible Rick, so the Fallible Rick is back. I'm known to make mistakes. I was up there singing. I messed up twice with the words, so I got the right name there. Okay, we got Balak, the destroyer, the hopping bird, the son of the hopping bird, or the bird that departs early. That's what the name Balak ben Beor means. If he's a destroyer, or a type of the destroyer, you might even say anti-type, which is an instead of, we got to think to ourselves, how will the destroyer confront us as we strive to enter into the promise? He teams up with Balaam. Not of the people is what Balaam means. He's the foreigner, the son of the burning lamp is what his father's name means. Balak sent twice, promising honor and wealth to Balaam. He would come and curse the people of Israel. These are royal delegations from the king of Moab. A lot of pomp and circumstance. You see that in the world today when they're sending forth one to another. There's usually a lot of pomp and circumstance and a lot of wealth behind the things that go on in the world. After some back and forth talk with Yah, Balaam goes with the chiefs of Moab and two of his young men. Elohim's anger glows, and the angel of Yah meets him in his way. You might say in the way, but most of the commentaries you listen to is, hey, he told him to go and all that. But it's talking like he went with him in mind and spirit, wanting to do what Balak was asking him to do and wanting to gain profit from it. That he's often referred to as the prophet for profit in many of the people's teachings. He's going on the way, and he can't see, but the donkey does. She turns 3 times to avoid Elohim's glowing anger, and Balaam beats her for it. So I got an observation. From Sinai to Acts, who is known for being stiff-necked? The people of Israel, stiff-necked. Yah said at Sinai to take off those headstalls. Take off those headstalls until I know what to do with you, talking to this stiff-necked people. Now I know in a lot of translations it says that he told them to take off the ornaments. You look up that word, and I didn't get the number at this time. You look up that word, but it specifically means a headstall. Like he's trying to ride them to the way he wants them to go, but they're just hardening their necks all the way along the way. So if that's the case, further then, we have to think, if that's a type of Israel maybe, if you yourself tried to bear up someone that's not of the people and turn them away from Elohim's anger with the gospel of truth, what would they probably want to do to you? You ever tried to witness to somebody who's not a believer in any way, shape, or form? Whether it's the way we think here with Torah and testimony, or just of the other congregations. Try to witness to somebody who believes there is no God. They're probably going to want to turn around and beat on you if it's not just beating on you with their words. Messiah, he turns away the wrath from us. And he rode a young filly without a stiff neck right into Jerusalem. A young filly who never a man had been ridden. I don't even think he had a headstall. I think that thing just by the Spirit walked right in. That he is the one who turns the wrath of Yahweh from us if we'll trust in him. Now, some of the teachings also that I heard through some of the rabbis and stuff, this donkey, when she's beat 3 times, he says, "What have I done to you that you have beat me these 3 times?" And what's unusual about it is they say that she used, excuse my Hebrew here, regalim. Why have you beat me in these 3 walks that I do? Instead of later on when Balak says to Balaam, I brought you to curse them. Why have you blessed them these 3 times? And he uses a different Hebrew word, ba'amim, I think it is, something like that. But this donkey says these 3 walks, these 3 regalim. So they scratch their head about that, and they think this donkey, this stiff-necked donkey, trying to turn away from the wrath of Yah, they're relating that to the 3 pilgrimage feasts. But you'll have to decide for yourself that's really what that means. But I did look it up, and that word is used there instead of the normal time for times. But after trying to curse Israel 3 times, only blessings flow. He can't say anything except for what Yah tells him to say. Even though we see in the scriptures that he's a prognosticator, a diviner, one who practices witchcraft, however we want to translate it, he mixes this stuff up. And that's what we need to be careful about. So we get some warnings about this dude in the end time. And I know this congregation, you guys have always studied a lot. You're probably going to already have known what I'm going to read, but that's what we're here for, is to make sure we don't forget these things, because this is a warning for the end times, and it'll come out in the writings. So the first one is 2 Peter, and I'm reading from the King James Version. 2 Peter 2:9 through 16. It says that the Lord knoweth how to deliver the godly out of temptations, and to reserve the unjust unto the day of judgment to be punished. But chiefly them that walk after the flesh in the lust of uncleanness and despise government. Presumptuous are they, self-willed. They are not afraid to speak evil of dignities. Whereas angels, which are greater in power and might, bring not railing accusation against them before Yah. But these, as natural brute beasts, made to be taken and destroyed, speak evil of the things that they understand not, and shall utterly perish in their own corruption, and shall receive the reward of unrighteousness, as they that count it pleasure to riot in the daytime. Spots they are, and blemishes, sporting themselves with their own deceivings while they feast with you. Having eyes full of adultery, and that cannot cease from sin. They beguile unstable souls, and heart they have exercised with covetous practices. Cursed children, which have forsaken the right way and are gone astray, following the way of Balaam. There's the warning. The son of Besor, who loved the wages of unrighteousness. I'm sure you guys have watched a lot of people who take up the name of Yah like Balaam did, and right away they start getting into the money talk. They love the wages. But he was rebuked for his iniquity. The dumb ass, speaking with man's voice, forbade the madness of the prophet. I looked up that word madness there, and it's the Greek 39:13. And madness, of course, is one of the definitions, but it means to be literally insane. Peter's saying that prophet was an insane prophet. Also a definition of a fool. He's mentioned again in Jude, the first book before the Revelation. So we know that's definitely probably a warning for the end times. Jude's a very small epistle, but I've always took it as something very relevant to be placed right before the Revelation. And in Jude, there's no chapters because it is a small epistle. I'm going to go ahead and start off in verse 4 and read through 11. For there are certain men crept in unawares, who were before of old ordained to this condemnation. They are ungodly men, turning the grace of our God into lasciviousness, and denying the only Lord God and our Lord, Joshua Messiah. So they come in among us. They may not openly deny it. This says, in their heart at least, they're denying Father and Son. And I think it's in either John or Peter. You're told if they deny Father and Son that they are what? Antichrist. I will therefore put you in remembrance, though you once knew this, how that Yah, having saved the people out of the land of Egypt, afterward destroyed them that believed not, and also the angels, which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation. He hath reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day. Now I take that as a very strong warning, because we're told in another place, even as we congregate, you better be careful when you entertain strangers, because it says you may be entertaining angels unaware. So that tells me they could appear just like men, just like they did to Abraham. You may not even be aware of it. And of course we know there's good angels and there's bad angels. Even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them, in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh, are set forth for an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. Likewise also these filthy dreamers defile the flesh, despise dominion, and speak evil of dignities. Yet even Michael the archangel, when contending with the devil, he disputed about the body of Moses, and he didn't bring against the devil a railing accusation, but he said the same thing we said earlier. Yah rebuke you. But these, they speak evil of those things which they know not, but what they know naturally as brute beasts or the unreasoning animals. In those things they corrupt themselves. Woe unto them, for they have gone in the way of Cain, and ran greedily after the error of Balaam. There's the warning again. For reward, and perished in the gainsaying of Korah. That's twice already in the New Testament. Warning. So, those people say, that's the Old Testament. Warning you. You better look back at that. Take a look at it. And then, of course, out of the words of Joshua the Messiah himself in the book of Revelation, chapter 2, verse 12 through 14. And he says to the angel of the church or the congregation in Pergamos, write, these things which hath the sharp sword with two edges. He says this, I know thy works. Works. If you're saved by grace alone, why does he mention work so much in Revelation? That's a question we have to answer ourselves. I know thy works. And I know thy works and where thou dwellest, even where Satan's seat is, and thou holdest fast my name, and hast not denied my faith, even in those days wherein Antipas was my faithful martyr, who was slain among you, where Satan dwelleth. But I have a few things against thee, because there thou hast them there that hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel. And if you're grafted into Israel, and these warnings from old come again, he's going to try to put a stumbling block in front of you and in front of me. To eat things that are sacrificed unto idols and to commit fornication. Now, I know we always talk like, in sacrifices, we don't do all that kind of stuff now and everything, but we'll see. First things in the natural, I always say, and then the spiritual. But there's two sides to all these things. I want you to take a look at the children in the wilderness. Notice that the old man, spiritually speaking, the older generation, dies. The old man dies. You become as little children, as we say. So the old man dies, and the child Israel, that would be us if we're believers, either of the natural seed or grafted in by faith. They head towards the promise, but the testing's not over. And it's not over for us either. It's going to be there till the end. I want you to notice also, besides there's some giants along the way, that the interference comes from family. Edom, twin brother. Moab, Ammon, and Midian, probably all cousins. They tell them, just let us pass through. We want to go to the promise. But it's family that's running interference to them. I bet you guys have experienced some of that in your walk. Coming out of Egypt, Babylon, whatever term you want to use, as you're trying to head to the promise, trying to follow Yah. It's even your own family that's going to run interference on you or with you, try to trip you up along the way. And just as the destroyer here is using people, the real destroyer, the adversary, he uses people a lot of times too. And you can't give in to these things, because it's written, unless you love me more than you love, and he gives a list of the ones, but they're all family. Unless you love me more than them, you're not going to be fit for the kingdom. So we need to keep that in mind. We've had some, being my wife and I, just recently had some, not major things, but, it could come in subtle ways where you don't even expect it. Where all of a sudden you're turning out of the way. And I felt pretty hard with some liquor in the last year. And I got to work on that. And I got to watch where I go and who I sit down with and things like that. Because that's, as we said, you who, what's that saying? You who work iniquity. That word work, I pointed out before, means you occupy yourself with that. You're occupied with that lawlessness. That's my background. I always tell my wife, if you don't admit where you're weak, y'all knows for one, the enemy knows. And if you don't admit, he's not going to tempt me with something that I've never been tempted by, I don't think. He's going to keep coming back, trying to tempt me with the things that he's known I've been weak with, especially. Not to say he won't try other things. But that should be a strong end-time warning for us, that the main interference, besides those big giants, but y'all allowed them to take those out, right? So it's almost like the big giants are what you really have to worry about. Y'all gave them over to them. They took those out right away. What they were left with was family around them. But anyway, I think it was when we did Shalak that I was talking about in there, that most of the time they abode in Kadesh. And Kadesh is not necessarily Kadosh, I said. And I pointed some things out with those words there. But I kind of want to go back to that because it is going to relate to this. But a certain man, he gave us a Bible. You like that in the scriptures when it says a certain man? This certain man gave us a Bible. And right after I did that teaching, and I ran across this, and I think that certain man was some kind of outcast of Israel. An outcast of Israel. But when I opened it up, I really hadn't even looked in it that much. My wife's been reading out of it. But I ran across this that relates to what I was talking about back then, but it also relates to this Torah portion. And here's the note, and it is from this week's Torah portion. And it says this about Baal. It says, Baal, the chief male deity of the Canaanite pantheon. Not just one god, many gods. The son of El, the father of the Canaanite gods. So El has children. The name Baal is associated with the title Lord. He was the god of agriculture and thunder. Like I said earlier, subtle ways. When I was growing up, I read comic books. Thor was one of my heroes. Never thought twice about it. Was nothing but entertainment to me, but never knew at all. I heard gods and all that, but with what we were taught, I never made that connection. Even the movies now look very entertaining, but I try to refrain from going to movies as much as possible now. And when I see something on TV that I study this stuff, but that God of thunder was subtle ways that you can start accepting things. He was the god of agriculture and thunder. According to the New Unger's Bible Dictionary, the worship of this deity was especially appalling. The cult included animal sacrifice, which our people do, so you could mimic, ritualistic meals, and licentious dances. That reminds me of today's strip clubs. And a lot of people say that's exactly where these things come from. Near the rock altar was a sacred pillar, or masebah in Hebrew. And close by the symbol And close by was the symbol of the Asherah. I looked that up during the week, and these are trees of praise, and they come in many forms. Some even, they said, just had a niche cut out, and then you place your idol in the tree. The tree was big enough to make a cutout, and they're called groves and things like that in the scriptures. Both of which apparently symbolize human fertility. And this is where I tied it into when I said that Kadesh is not necessarily Kadosh. High places had chambers for sacred prostitution by male prostitutes, the Kedeshim, and sacred harlots, the Kedeshot. And that's why I said, I think that was the reason why they dwelt in Kadesh, which means a quasi-sacred person, was that Yah was kind of saying, even as with us, kind of set apart, but in other ways we're not. And it doesn't always have to be that appalling, as it said, and be actual harlotry in the natural sense, but it can also be in the spiritual sense. So let's go to 1 Corinthians 10:1. I don't always stay just in the Torah portion because we know that it goes back and forth and they're all connected. Can't understand one without the other. But Paul gives a warning. And it's actually a warning that talks about this week's Torah portion in one verse at least. But anyway, 1 Corinthians 10:1 through verse 10. Paul says, "Moreover, brethren, I would not that you should be ignorant, how that all our fathers were under the cloud, and all passed through the sea, and were all baptized unto Moses in the cloud and in the sea, and did all eat the same spiritual meat, and did all drink the same spiritual drink, for they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Messiah. But with many of them Elohim was not well pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness, all the old men who did not have enough faith to enter into the promise. Now these were our examples, to the intent we should not lust after evil things, as they also lusted. Neither be ye idolaters, as some of them, as it is written, the people sat down to eat and drank and rose up to play. Neither let us commit fornication, as some of them committed, and fell in one day 23,000. That's linking it back right there to this week's Torah portion. Now there's a discrepancy in the numbers there. I think the Torah portion says 24,000. This says 23,000. There's a lot of people that explain that. If you want to look into it, you can. But the one that makes most sense to me is they added in the princes that were hung, and it brings it to 24,000. Neither let us tempt Christ or Messiah, as some of them also tempted and were destroyed of serpents. Neither murmur you, as some of them also murmured and were destroyed of the destroyer. That's the name for Balak, and the name also Abaddon and Apollyon. Type, antitype, and the actual one. So with that, like I said, most people wanted to concentrate on the talking donkey and all that, and I listen to a lot of stuff, and they usually cut it off before they got to Numbers 25, but that's where I want to go next. And it'll be 1 through 9, I think, will be the last part of the Torah portion. Also, before I go on, when I was talking about they dwelt in Kadosh, Kadesh, and it was not necessarily Kadosh. I pointed out also that in some other scriptures in the minor prophets and also in Acts, it actually says they were raising up or bearing the tabernacles of false gods. They used the word Kiyong in the Old Testament, in the King James, and Remphan in Acts. But he said, did you really worship me all those years? Or were you doing other things, basically? But anyway, Numbers 25:1. And Israel abode in Shittim, and they began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. And they called the people unto the sacrifices of their gods. And the people did eat and bowed down to their gods. They talked them into worship. And Israel joined himself to Baal Peor. Or the people render this as yoked. It's written, can two walk together unless they are agreed? And Israel joined himself unto Baal Peor, and the anger of Yah was kindled against Israel. And Yah said unto Moses, take all the heads of the people. One guy pointed out here that it didn't say the judges. So he thinks, in his opinion, these are men chosen by the people to be like the heads of their little groups. And hang them up before Yah against the sun, that the fierce anger of Yah may be turned away from Israel. Looking up this word hang up, some people even translate it as impaling, which is going right up the body. Other people say this is a form of crucifixion, that they were actually crucified. Not sure which one, but you can look that up for yourself. I wasn't going to say this, but it just came to my mind. I know when I've looked up before when it says hang a man on a tree, like in Joshua, I think they do that. And I looked up that word, it says especially to gibbet. You ever seen a gibbon monkey? How he usually hangs? Well, that's how they say to hang a man on a tree. And if you were crucified or impaled on a stake, I don't think your arms would be up in the form of a gibbon monkey hanging there. It would have to be some kind of crossbeam, but that's just something that I found when I was checking the words out. When it says to hang a man on a tree and don't let him stay there till evening and all that stuff. And Moses said unto the judges of Israel, slay ye every one of his men that were joined to Baal Peor. And behold, one of the children of Israel came and brought unto the brethren a Midianite woman in the sight of Moses and in the sight of all the congregation of the children of Israel who were weeping before the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And when Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, saw it, he rose up from among the congregation and took a javelin in his hand. And he went after the man of Israel into the tent and thrust both of them through, the man of Israel and the woman through her belly. So the plague was stayed from the children of Israel. And those that died in the plague were 24,000. That's that number I said in 1 Corinthians. There's a discrepancy there of 1,000 people, I think it is, but I think it may be these ones that were hung also were added into it. So what do we have there? Some people teach that they were in the congregation, the Moed, the Ohel Moed, the tent of meeting. But Chris, did you find those images? I asked Chris if he could find some images. The Hebrew word, and I'll get into a little bit later, but the Hebrew word, and let me read, just leave it there and let me read this note here. When I got this companion Bible when we were way back on 7th Street, before I started learning how to study in the Green's Interlinear, where I could actually look at the Hebrew words and they're keyed to the Strong's numbers and all that. I got this companion Bible, and it has a lot of great notes talking about the Hebrew language and all that. And this is where I first seen it. And it says that in the Hebrew, it's not the tent of meeting. This is a kubah, a high and vaulted pleasure tent used in the worship of Baal. It occurs only here. And her belly, the Hebrew kobah, the part between the ribs and the loins, occurs only here. And I have not found it myself studying in the Hebrew where it does occur anywhere else. That's a kubah. And right near that kubah is a masabah, as I said, reading out of that. A pillar. We call it the Washington Monument. On top of that kubah is a female deity. You got the next one? Another kubah. That one you can see the masabah. It's inside a sun disk. Christian nations, right? How about the next one? Another kubah. They say that was first a church building, from what I understand, until the Muslims took it over. That's another kubah. I was watching some stuff, and you can see some more when I was watching some things, not even studying about this, about Jerusalem, and they did a panoramic view. You can see little kubahs everywhere, and masabahs. And they even call they got some they call minarets, I believe, the same kind of thing. They're all over the world. That's what that is. That's what that's patterned off. How about the next one, Chris? The Kaaba in Mecca. The Kaaba in Mecca is not a kubah. If anything, that more resembles what our Yah would dwell in. I've always thought that's part of the deception there. What's the Holy of Holies look like when you take the measurements? It's a cube, right? You can look stuff up about cubes, and they got Saturn's cube and all that. Do any of you guys remember the Borg in one of the Star Trek movies? Come in a cube, right? Looking all evil. You will be assimilated. Resistance is futile, right? But if you don't think he works in subtle ways like that, a lot of people say that this religion here actually came out of the second image that meets under that kubah, that it was actually formed by the Vatican. Believe it or not, when you're growing up, a lot of you guys remember a show called Ripley's Believe It or Not, right? You look at the facts and all that, and you can decide whether you want to believe it or not. But the Kaaba is not a kubah. The other three were. And like I said, they are everywhere. Most of our state capitals are under a kubah, and most of them have a female deity on top, and you'll find a masabah somewhere around it. Thank you, Chris. So that kind of takes me up into today's news, and I say, Israel today, they got a defense system. Does anybody know what they call it? One of their defense system? The Iron Dome. Why didn't they give it a name like Yehoshua or something, or Yah Saves, or I know they have the Samson option too. I've heard of that. One of their main things is the Iron Dome. But if they really are Yah's people, why don't they proclaim his name more often and say he's their salvation? There's got to be a mixture, I think, over there, but who's in charge, really? They got I wasn't going to say this either, but their new gas field or whatever, they named it Leviathan. Really? And then they named something else up in the goal line, some other name that has to do with the enemy more than with Yah. The people, they dwelt in Shittim. Shittim means scourging thorns. That's like one of the last stops before they cross over. And if we're coming to the end of the ages, closer than anybody has ever been, you're going to stop and have many scourging thorns around you, poking you all the time. So just be aware of these things for our learning. So they erected a kubah, that's Hebrew 6898. It's a domed cavity. It comes from the Hebrew 6895, kabab, to scoop out, to malign, and to stab with words. This is one of the words also used for curse when Balaam and Balak are going back and forth. And I've found these words only here. They start using the word that's related to the belly and the dome, to curse, which, like I just said, means to stab with words. Pinchas, he stabbed the man and the woman through her kobah. That's 6897, making a shish kebab of them both. That's where we get that word from, I'm sure. It's 2 pieces of meat. And that's what he did to him. He went right into that dome tent that's erected. That's why, to me, that's why it says he brought him to his brothers. People say that he took this meeting, that woman's going to marry her and all that. There's nothing wrong with that if she becomes one of the children of Israel, says your God will be my God, and my people, your people, my people. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think this dome was erected. They probably put that masabah where people can see, and this is where you come and pay the harlot's fee. And he brought her to the brothers when they were still weeping for the plague going through the congregation. So for us, we see that these words seem to be unique to this portion. About to enter the promised land. So for us, if we don't acknowledge the spiritual wickedness behind these things today, what you've seen there, there's nothing new under the sun. And take heed to discern the words of especially the people who meet there. We may well fall, as Paul said, for it is written, the devil deceives the whole world. And that's in Revelation 12:9. I don't know if you guys seen just recently, his name's slipping my mind, rich guy that just got in trouble with young women. Anybody? Epstein. Did anybody see his private island? Had a golden dome on top of a temple he had. And what was unusual about it, he did have a cube, but then he put the dome on top of that. Set a golden owl up there. That stuff seems to be missing now, but it wasn't before. They got pictures of it and all that. You can go online and check it out. He called that place Little St. James, but it had a second name called Lolita. He would take very upscale, famous, rich people out on the Lolita Express. My American Heritage Dictionary at home says that it's a Lolita is a very promiscuous type of young woman. And that's what he's accused of. But he had this cube up there, and he had a golden kubah on top of it also. And the golden owl, which most people say is a sign of Molech. A lot of you guys have heard of, what's that place in California? Bohemian Grove. They got a big giant owl up there where all the rich people like to go and meet. Heads of state, everything. Presidents. What's a woman in Scripture? Many times. Congregations, right? Peoples, groups of people, congregations. Spiritually speaking. Proverbs 7, warns against the strange woman. A while back I read that in one of the things I was up here presenting, and you can read it for yourself. Very powerful warning. If you go into these congregations, especially if you're not familiar with the people, they could be like that strange woman spiritually that Proverbs 7 is warning you about. A lot of it's the things that come out of their mouth. So we're not going to go there, but I'd like to go to another one in Proverbs. Proverbs 31, 1 through 9. The words of King Lemuel. If I remember right, that means one who is dedicated to Elohim. The words of King Lemuel, they also say it's like a pet name for Solomon. Probably is. He didn't heed these words, as we'll see in a minute. The prophecy that his mother taught him. What, my son? And what, the son of my womb? And what, the son of my vows? Give not thy strength unto women, nor thy ways to that which destroyeth kings. It is not for kings, O Lemuel, it is not for kings to drink wine. We've pointed out before that it says they're drunk, but they're not drunk with wine. They stagger, but it's not with strong drink. It's doctrine in a lot of cases. Lest they drink and forget the Torah and pervert the judgment of any of the afflicted. Give strong drink unto him that is ready to perish. Let him drink and forget his poverty and remember his misery no more. Open thy mouth for the dumb in the cause of all such as are appointed to destruction. Open thy mouth, judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor and the needy. Like I said, we're going to see in a minute if this is talking about Solomon, like many scholars think it is. He didn't heed these words. That as it points out in the Torah, that kings, they should have copied their own Torah and read from it all the time, studied it, meditated on the words day and night. They're supposed to handwrite a copy from the Levites, I think, if you're going to be a king. So let's turn real quick to 1 Kings 11:1. And it's going to talk about Solomon and the error of his ways. All things written as warnings for us. 1 Kings 11:1. But King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughters of Pharaoh, the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, the ones we're seeing in today's Torah portion, the Ammonites, the Edomites, the Zidonians, and the Hittites, of the nations concerning which Yah said unto the children of Israel, Ye shall not go into them, neither shall they come into you, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon clave unto these in love. And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. For it came to pass when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after their gods, and his heart was not perfect with Yah, his Elohim, as was the heart of David, his father. So Solomon went after Ashtoreth, Easter, the goddess of the Zidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. And Solomon did evil in the sight of Yah, and went not fully after Yah, as did David his father. Then did Solomon build an high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Moloch, the abomination of the children of Ammon. And likewise did he for all his strange wives, which burnt incense and sacrificed unto their gods. We're told, right? New Testament, don't be unequally yoked. You want to make sure you get somebody who's like-minded. If you're not married yet, you really want to consider that. And Yah was very angry with Solomon, because his heart was turned from Yah, the God of Israel, which had appeared to him twice. Literally talked with him in a dream. I think it was 2 dreams, but I'd have to go back and check it out. And had commanded him concerning this thing, that he should not go after other Elohim, but he kept not that which Yah commanded. Like I say, he should have known better. But also say he was old. So as time goes on, even for us as we're getting older, you don't want to let your guard down. Even if it's somebody in your family, it don't necessarily have to be your wife, as we pointed out. Twin brother, cousins. People are going to get you to drop your guard. So with that, I want to go to Joshua 23. And I want to read that real fast. And I do want to read the whole chapter, so I'm going to kind of burn through it. And it came to pass, a long time after that, Yah had given rest unto Israel from all their enemies round about, that Joshua waxed old and stricken with age. And Joshua called for all Israel, and for their elders, and for their heads, and for their judges, and for their officers, and said unto them, I am old and stricken with age. Joshua ben Nun, a fleshly type and antitype of our Joshua, who don't grow old, who doesn't grow old, because he is eternal with the Father. And ye have seen all that Yah your Elohim hath done unto all these nations because of you. For Yah your Elohim is he that hath fought for you. Behold, I have divided unto you by lot these nations that remain, to be an inheritance for your tribes from Jordan, with all the nations that I have cut off, even unto the great sea westward, the Mediterranean. And Yah your God, Yah your Elohim, shall expel them from before you, and drive them out of your sight, and you shall possess their land, as Yah your Elohim hath promised unto you. But ye therefore be very courageous to keep and to do all that is written in the book of the Torah of Moses. I wanted to be sure on that. But that word book is not tablets of the Torah of Moses. It's the Sefer. So, some people just say, the 10 and everything else. I don't think so. That ye turn not aside, therefore, from the right hand or to the left, that ye come not among these nations, these that remain among you, neither make mention of the name of their gods, nor cause to swear by them, neither serve them, nor bow yourselves down to them. But cleave unto Yah your Elohim, as you have done unto this day. Did they? Some of them may have, but not all of them did. For Yah hath driven out from before you great nations and strong. But as for you, no man hath been able to stand before you unto this day. One man of you shall chase 1,000, for Yah your Elohim, he it is that fighteth for you, and he hath promised you. Take heed, therefore, unto yourselves, that ye love Yah your Elohim. Else if you do in any wise go back, and cleave unto the remnant of these nations, even these that remain among you, and shall make marriages with them, and go in unto them, and they to you, know for a certainty that Yah your Elohim will no more drive out any of these nations from before you, but they shall be snares and traps unto you, and scourges, shittim, in your sides, and thorns in your eyes, until you perish from off this good land which Yah your Elohim has given you. Now, I don't have a thought in my mind about going against other people. But working itself right out in the news today, you see other people coming into that Cuba, and they're going back and forth. And a lot of people are going on the side of that one congresswoman. Hey, whatever you want to believe. But like I said, subtle ways. Be careful who you join yourself to. I mean, it's happening right before our eyes. And behold, this day I am going to the way of all the earth. This is that Joshua. Our Joshua of Nazareth, he went the way of all the earth too, down to the grave. But Yah rose him from the dead to live forevermore. And you know in your hearts and in all your souls that not one thing hath failed of all the good things which Yah your Elohim spake concerning you. All are come to pass unto you, and not one thing hath failed thereof. Therefore it shall come to pass that as all good things are come upon you, which Yah your Elohim has promised you, so shall Yah bring unto you all evil things, until he hath destroyed you from off this good land, which Yah your Elohim hath given you. When ye have transgressed, it's almost prophetic. When ye have transgressed, he's telling them, the covenant of Yah your Elohim, which he commanded ye, and have gone and served other gods, and bowed yourselves to them, then shall the anger of Yah be kindled against you, and ye shall perish quickly from off the good land which he hath given to you. Like I said, it sounds kind of prophetic. This Joshua dies. Immediately get into Judges. The trouble starts. From there to the exile, the return, and it continues to this day. So speaking of that Joshua of Nazareth, John 10:1, getting real close to the end. He tells us the right way. The first Joshua did also. Told you not to go after any other. And he says, Verily, verily, I say unto you, that he that entereth not by the door unto the sheepfold, but climbeth up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. But he that entereth in by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the porter openeth, and the sheep hear his voice. And he calleth his own sheep by name, and leadeth them out. He gives us good pasture. And when he putteth forth his own sheep, he goeth before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. And a stranger will they not follow, but will flee from him, for they know not the voice of strangers. This parable Joshua spake unto them, but they understood not what things they were which he spake unto them. Then said Joshua unto them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep. All that ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. I am the door. By me, if any man enter, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out and find pasture. For the thief cometh not, but to steal, to kill, and to destroy. Balak, the destroyer. I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep. But he that is an hireling, and not the shepherd, whose own sheep are not, seeing the wolf come, and leaveth the sheep, and fleeth. And the wolf catcheth them, and scattereth the sheep. The hireling fleeth, because he is an hireling, and careth not for the sheep. I am the good shepherd, and know my sheep, and am known of mine. As the Father knoweth me, even so I the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. And the other And other sheep I have, which are not of this fold. Them also I must bring, and they shall hear my voice. And there shall be one fold and one shepherd. That's the way that we should go. The good shepherd that leads us to good pasture. Not hearing the voice of others. There are many voices out there. These women, like I say, churches, congregations, even nations, Israel, Judah. But as you can see back there, when the cursing and all that didn't fail, what did he do? He sent in the women. I like to refer to them as, out of Song of Solomon, the little foxes, right? We used to say that in the old days, foxy. Foxy. Speaking of women, send in the little foxes, they'll spoil the vine. That's exactly what he did. Got them to probably speak smooth sayings and everything. And like I said, I'm not relating that to the female gender. I'm talking about congregations. People who want to speak to you. They're not speaking these words. Or speaking these words and mixing them up. Messiah, confronted with the Satan, he tempted him, tested him. He peppered it with what? Words. Mixing it together. He didn't fall for it, but many of us do at times. So with that, I'd just like to finish by saying, in this time of coexistence, I'm sure you guys have all heard that. Bumper sticker, coexist. Has all the symbols on it. The second Kuba showed up there. He's been to the first Kuba, which is our Capitol Rotunda. By the way, up on the top of that thing is the Assumption, I think they call it, of Washington. They show him going up into heaven as he's some kind of God enthroned. I've been in there taking pictures, thinking how great it was. I was stationed over there, so I got to see a lot of these things. And at the time, I was very proud of them being a U.S. citizen. Now I really say tear them all down. You know, that'd be my will, because I don't think it's Father's will to have those there. But at this time of coexistence and interfaith movements, like I said, the Pope's been here. He's gone under that Capitol Rotunda. He's come out of one. They went down, I think, below the 9/11 site, had an interfaith thing. People were praying to their gods, making mention of other gods all together, speaking peace. I mean, we're warned about these things. They were doing it, if you watch the news. I seen him down in Mexico. My wife kind of said, hey, don't say that, you know, but I seen him going in his caravan with all the police out in front of him and all that, and the people lining the streets. And my thought was, there goes Adonijah. There goes Absalom. You know, they had people going before them and making great pomp and circumstance. But that's what it reminded me of. Not somebody who's really trying to get the gospel out, but somebody who uses it sometimes and mixes all these things up. And in a lot of cases, they're out for riches like Balaam. So we need to remember that there is nothing new under the sun. What was will be. We were told and we read that these things, even from this week's Torah portion, are for our warnings, for examples, as we're about to enter in, as they were about to enter in, still going to come, and probably even stronger. You're probably going to see in these days here, it's going to start really, the heat's going to be turned up. And it may not be physical persecution, but it's going to be the lying tongue and all that. Seeing what you'll fall for, who you might join yourself to. That's what Mike pointed out in one of the the last Torah studies in there, that Baal Peor is the Lord of the opening, right? It means an opening or a gap. Once you get a wedge and you start opening something up, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So anyway, I'd like to close by saying that it will go well with us if we humbly as Moses and others do. David, the king, in our private chambers especially, fall on our faces whenever and wherever we are, and to seek a grove, or to enter a kubah, or to climb to any high place, which is known as a bama, by the way. In Hebrew, a high place is a bama. Oh, bama. To climb to any high place, a Baal. It's a lot easier just to get down, to humble yourself and prostrate yourself wherever you are to the God of Israel, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, than to go seeking after any of these other things. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you for watching a teaching from Emet HaTorah. If you are ever in the Odessa area, we would love to welcome you to our Shabbat service, 11 a.m. every Sabbath. For more information or for more teachings, feel free to find us on the web, www.emethatorohodessa.com. Also, you can find us on Facebook. Thank you. God bless you and your family. Shalom.